And turn this on. Got the microphone good.
You got everything up?
Yes, I believe so.
Let me go in. I'll talk to you later.
All right. I am confused. Where is my screen? Confused. Where is my screen? Hello, Heidi. Welcome. Just getting set up here. Give me a few minutes. This. Open up this. Share screen. All right. All right, give me a couple more minutes and we'll go ahead and commence today's class. Howdy, the script is done. I just finished it last night, and we're going to go over it today because there's a couple of parts I wanted to share with everyone. I'm not going to go over the whole document. I'll send you the whole document either today or tomorrow if I get final approval from Mr. Davis. But we're going to cover it a bit today. And so you'll get a preview of it, and we'll also, because there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask Mr. Davis about it as well. So I figured we'll turn it into a session, and then we'll send it out later on, and you'll have opportunity to go over it. So in a couple of days. If not, if I don't send it out today, then we'll send it out tomorrow. As soon as I get permission from Mr. Davis. All right, welcome everyone. I think I'm about ready now, so let's begin today's session. Let's start with a prayer for spiritual workers. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their limitations, would smite me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their weakness, would not heed me. Almighty God, I bless all those who, because of their ignorance, would defile you through me. And I ask, Almighty God, O wondrous power, that your strength may be given to me now, so that I might be fortified by this, so that I might go forward bravely into the world, and despite reception, send forth my love of thee throughout all races of man. Almighty God, give me the power and strength to rise above my karmic weakness, the deficiencies in the pattern of my evolution, so that I might evolve and become stronger, I, and even stronger in thy everlasting light. O God, thy will be done. All right, welcome everyone to another session of the review and RSS review of selected lecture series. Today, we will look at a document we just completed, titled the Key Eight Components of Imagination and Visualization. This is part of a request from one of our students on the technique of manifestation. And in this document, Mr. Davis goes into a practice for, or gives a technique to manifest something into being or into reality. Excuse me. I'm choosing to, or elected to go over this document today for multiple reasons. Um, there are those of you who have requested an opportunity to help out and volunteer with us or to contribute in some way. And there are multiple ways in which you can help out. You could also contribute financially by donating to us if you're so inclined. Um, but one of the primary activities that we do is producing material to help everyone uh, read, study, learn, digest, and apply the teachings. And this, and in that process, we, well, Mr. Davis, well, he has created, as you guys know, many handouts, many write-ups, many illustrations, many diagrams to help us understand these concepts. But there's also several books and publications that Mr. Davis has been working on throughout the years that he releases. And part of the process of producing that material in those books is a back and forth process of editing, revisions, reworks. Either myself and some of the other students in the IMKC will work on these materials and we'll go back and forth with Mr. Davis. Sometimes if we're going through the write-ups, we have questions and we'll ask Mr. Davis the questions and then he'll provide further clarification, um, all with the goal of reducing these handouts for all of you to study and later collecting them into texts that all of you, and books, like for example, Ancient Language of the Soul, Mr. Davis's first book, the Prayer Book, Mr. Davis's second book. We went back and forth with that, editing it through several revision processes. And this is one of the primary activities that we undertake as part of the mission of releasing the teachings to all of you and pushing forward the methodology of the IMKC, which is underneath the Mystic Constitution of Man. Uh, so I wanted to give kind of a behind the scenes view today of how we work on some of these documents and on some of these illustrations and these works published by Mr. Davis before we release them to you. Also, in a way to encourage those, if this is something you would like to do as well, because there are many, many, many more documents that we're working on that we would like to release to everyone. And we want to be able to get as much material out as possible with the time that we have. So today, we're going to look at a document that we're currently working on called the 8 components of imagined visualization. This hasn't been released yet. Um, this was actually part of a request that you, Hardy, had about the technique on manifestation. It was included in a book that Mr. Davis was working on several years ago, and this is an excerpt from that book that we're currently moving back and forth with, trying to get together into an entire book of practices, I believe, and then we'll get that published as maybe the third or fourth book Mr. Davis is going to work on, going to publish. Now, there are many benefits, I'm going to talk from my perspective now, as working on an editor and reviewer of the books and materials that Mr. Davis produces. Kind of my pitch to, in case you guys want to volunteer, here's my pitch to you guys. Uh, First off, I'll start and say it is a long and somewhat difficult process. Now, when I say difficult, it's not the editing itself is not what's difficult. What's difficult is if I can get a bit mystic about it, is the karmic manipulation that happens to you as you work on these materials, right? So you are participating in the process of bringing these teachings through out to the world. And a lot of things happen in the background and to you as you're working on, as you're doing this type of work, as you're doing this type of karmic manipulation, as you're doing this type of service to the world. And what I notice for me as I am manipulating my karma positively, as I'm positively manipulating my karma by doing things like this, I get a lot of opposition. I get a lot of interference, not from anybody else, not from any outside interference. It's from me, myself. Okay. So, like, if none of you guys can hear, I got a bit of a sinus infection. I've been sick for about a week. I've been working on this document alone for about going on 2, maybe 3 weeks. And it's not that this document is so hard that it takes me 3 weeks to go through it. Is that every time I pick it up, something happens. 2 computers fry. I get sick. Something with the family happens. And then as I'm working on actually sitting down working on it, my mind is constantly grasshopping all over the place. I'm constantly bringing in these own interruptions to myself. I got to go to the bathroom. Got phone rings. Da, 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 da. So there's a lot of manipulation that happens as you are doing this type of service. And there's an expression that my pastor many years ago when I was a part of a member of the church, my pastor used to say, um, um, if the devil's not interfering with you, then you're not doing anything good. So if the more positive or ultra positive work that you try to do and service you try to do, the more interference you're going to face. And that interference is, as my opinion, is a materialization of that karmic manipulation that's going on in the background, your own karmic manipulation. There's nobody external or any external force that interfering with me. It is my own limitations that are being brought to the fore, and I'm having to burn those negative samskaras up as I'm working through materials like this. And the same similar thing will happen to you. It's whether it's mantra japa, whether it's prayer, whether it's volunteer service, whatever any type of service you're going to do, you are actively uh, engaging in the manipulation of your own karma. You're accelerating your own karma. And so you're going to see these samskaras, you're going to feel these samskaras pop up, and you can choose to give into those limitations and let it hold you back, or you can push through it. And I promise you, the more you push through it, the more you stay steadfast on your goal of producing service and manipulating your karma in a positive way, the greater and greater the results will be. So this is an example of that. As I get to work on these documents, a benefit I get, aside from just that positively manipulating my karma, is another way of interacting with and engaging with the teachings. It's one thing to, I guess, in the past, to be able to sit in the classroom and listen and absorb everything that Mr. Davis teaches in the classes and the lectures. It's another thing to be a active cog in the mechanism that brings these teachings forward to the world and assist my teacher, my guru, in making these teachings available to everyone. Um, it's not easy. It is a bit of a sacrifice, but the rewards far outweigh any cost that you incur. And because I'm taking a more active involvement in that mechanism for getting the teachings through, I am granted another level of understanding and application that you would not necessarily get as just an observer absorber. Not to take anything away from participating in the classes or listening to the lectures or maybe even watching the classes over and over again until you can absorb and apply it. But when you're actively, the more actively engaged you are in the dissemination of the teachings, in the translation of the teachings, in the making available the teachings, the greater and greater power you're given. Power to understand, power to comprehend, power to learn, and power to apply. When working on the prayer book that Mr. Davis released, there were so many enlightening moments, so many aha moments in understanding the science and the technical aspects of prayer that it enhanced my own prayer practice um, hundredfold, thousandfold. And that enhancement makes me a stronger, purer, and more powerful channel to help pull this energy down and out throughout the world, to be a better vessel for service, and in thereby allowing me to pull upon more energy and do even more service, which has the circular effect of allowing me to pull down more energy and be of greater service. I'm just using prayer for an example because that's the most book we just the most recent book we released, but it is a definite example. You start to peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, and you get that knowledge, that nani yoga, that practice, that application and practice of nani yoga empowers my yoga in general, overall, and my service that I'm able to give to the world, but also my understanding, my growth, and my spiritual development and evolution. Another benefit of being able to work on these documents is it gives me a deeper and closer to connection to our teacher, Mr. Davis. What do I mean by that? So as I'm reading through this, as Mr. Davis says, the spoken word, when we speak, we release an aspect of our kundalini, right? The written word is just a form of spoken word. And so throughout these works, these writings, these texts, Mr. Davis channeled this information through it himself and releases an aspect of his kundalini into these written words. Mr. Davis is in this word. These words are an aspect of Mr. Davis's consciousness. And so as I'm reading through this, to be able to try to understand and interpret what Mr. Davis, what my guru is trying to convey through these words, I have to connect myself to him. Okay. I have to ask myself, what is Mr. Davis trying to say? And believe it or not, I will hear him in my mind saying, this is what I'm trying to get across. This is the idea I'm trying to project. And it's not an all at once process. It's a process that comes after years of attending classes, having conversations, discussions with Mr. Davis, every single telephone conversation, every in-person conversation, every class, every email, every text message. All of that goes together into creating this connection with my guru to allow me to pull from him and say, okay, this is what my teacher is trying to get through. Or not even just my teacher. It happens too if you, with any metaphysical teacher, with Dr. George King, uh, um, Yogananda, um, Shivananda, if you go through, if you study their writings and study their works, you begin to make a connection to these teachings, and you can hear them through their works and outside of the works, even outside, when you're driving your car or interacting with people or at work, that connection maintains itself throughout the years, whether or not that person is on the gross physical plane or not. You still have that connection. You still hear their voice, their guidance. So as I'm going through these documents, I'm asking myself, what is Mr. Davis trying to say here? How is he trying to word this? And I hear or I feel that connection. Mr. Davis saying, this is what I'm trying to say. And I say, okay, I now have to pull on my own experience, you know, from all the jobs I've had, all the books I've read, all the activities I've ever done, all of my life experience now becomes another channel to help translate what Mr. Davis has pulled through and put down in this document. And then now I put a piece of myself into this document to try and express these ideas, these concepts in a way that will help everyone else who has a similar life experience to myself understand these concepts as well. So we're going to go through this document, and I want to give you guys a look at how we present these ideas, work in that flow back and forth. Mr. Davis is here with us, and you're going to hear how I read something. I have a question. I'll ask Mr. Davis, and then he'll go into a deeper explanation of a particular concept. Like there's parts in here where I've highlighted in yellow, where I've had certain questions where maybe I just couldn't quite grasp what it was that Mr. Davis was trying to say there. And so he'll explain it further, and that leads to a deeper discussion on this particular subject that's being presented in either that paragraph or in that passage or what have you. And that is a similar process that if you decide to volunteer and help us with editing and work in producing these teachings, that you will go through as well. It's you're not just a copy editor. You're still a student, and you learn on a deeper level when you try to teach or present information than if you just absorbed it and applied it yourself. And then being able to communicate directly with Mr. Davis in this way allows me to develop deeper, allows me to gain a greater understanding and a greater appreciation for the teachings, which then I can take back into my own practice and into my own development and into my own evolution, growing ever slightly higher and higher. Not much, I have quite the ways to go, but with each incremental step, I am granted even greater access um, to the teachings and greater access to the levels of service I'm able to render, and greater access to the amount of power I'm able to push through and manipulate and send out to the world. With that comes a greater and greater um, responsibility. I have deeper understanding, and therefore I have deeper, not karmic limitation, because when sometimes we hear the word limitation, we immediately think, oh, negative. I'm not able to do certain things, but that's not always the right approach. Um, because we're so used to free will, we attribute limitation with restriction. But in reality, the more knowledge and wisdom you gain, the more freedom um, you're able to experience. And that freedom is adhering to the laws of karma. So as I'm studying these teachings, as I'm working through these texts, and as I'm manipulating my karma, I'm given greater and greater freedom, meaning the laws of karma become more and more apparent to me. And I am able to work more acutely within those laws to accomplish whatever it is I want to accomplish. That's Mr. Davis drills into us over and over and over again from the very beginning, from the very first class. Enlightenment is being able to predetermine all of your actions. If I know the laws that are essential that it can operate within in order to accomplish a particular task, I can predetermine all of my actions to operate within the laws and accomplish that goal. It's it's science, basically, right? What is science, physics, engineering? As an engineer, you know the rules. As a civil engineer, you know the laws which govern different elements, uh, which governs different materials, which governs stone, concrete, steel, lumber, and based off of the laws that govern those materials, you know exactly what type of structures you can make. If you want to make a house, if you want to make a shed, if you want to make a pool, if you want to make um, a skyscraper, if you want to make a Ferris wheel, you know the laws that govern the materials and the forces that those materials are able to interact with, and so you can apply those laws to build whatever you want. It's the same thing with metaphysics or spirituality. Okay, so that's my sales pitch. So today we're going to go over this document, and I want all of you to also engage as well. So as you hear me reading through it, as you hear me posing questions back to Mr. Davis and his responses back and forth, and if it triggers a question in your mind, by all means, feel free to post in the chat. I'm going to go back and forth with the chat and with the document, and you're going to see me make additional changes on the way. So, for example, this here that's crossed out, this was a change I made from the original document. We usually work in Word because it allows us to track changes. Um, but this is an online version um, of Word, Office 365, and sometimes we'll all come together as a group and we'll all work on a document together. Three or four of us will be tuned in and we'll be making changes on the live, tracking our changes so we can see what was changed. If we agree with the change, we'll go ahead and accept it, right? And then move on to the next one, and you see it disappears. If we don't accept it, then we'll go back and we'll say, okay, well, maybe we should keep this paragraph in, or keep this line in, or keep this phrase in, because of the idea that is being conveyed through here. First of all, it has to go from the mental realms down to the gross physical speech realm, and then we have to convey it into words, and then it's words that will last for perpetuity. So whether somebody reads this document today, or 100 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, the thought is still there, the message is still conveyed, albeit, some changes to adjust to whatever current vernacular is being used at that time. But the ancient teachings remain, um, as Dr. George King, he thought they were perfect. He said the teachings are perfect until he was introduced to an enhancement of the teachings given by the cosmic masters, Mars 606, the master theorist, the master Jesus, and so on. Okay. Was there anything you want to add or correct, Nehemiah? And I ranted on for about 20 minutes there. All right. So let me stop this share and hop into uh, announcements. Welcome, 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 everyone. Yes, I do see your questions, and I will get to them right before I jump into today's exercise. As for announcements, we're going to continue with the 21 Lessons Metaphysics. And then again, 2026, which is right around the corner. I may push that back again because I still have quite a lot to go through. I'm going to go over the serpent power. Oh, where's this one? I skipped this one. And we do have our Society Florida group. So if you'd like to join in and participate with our 12 Blessings prayer series, prayer practice that we do every week, you're more than welcome to join us on Meetup. Look for South Florida Aether Society group. We also have commemorations, and we're going to be doing a study and review of selected lectures and works by Dr. George King through the um, Florida group of the Society coming soon. Okay. Questions. I see your questions. Nima, you're there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. Yeah, was there anything you wanted to add or correct before I move on to the questions?
No. I had to step out for a minute, but
Okay. Okay, so questions. How how does music create verities in us? Can you explain something about it?
music is part of sound, and all sound is an aspect of the mind built of the universe and the earth. So if you notice the great masters, seers, adepts, bodhisattvas, they all describe the chakra system with a series of sounds or symbols that represent sound, because sound is a configuration of energy. So the most memorable times in your life, you can always connect uh, some type of music or sound or voice to those memories, and it has that ability to imprint or create some scars, heavy some scars on your aura. So that's one of the ways you know that sound and music. Another thing that the science of sound is partially and heavily documented under the ancient mystic knowledge of Tantra Satra and Mantra Satra. They give the knowledge behind sound, how mantra actually molds, actually shapes and mold uh, energy and matter into substance and eventually into gross matter. So that's one of the great secrets of of mantra and sound vibrations. It actually shapes your consciousness. And anything that shapes your consciousness is that thing that shapes the universe. You know, in the ancient teaching, Vak was the original sound from God, from the absolute, and everything fell into place from those initial sounds. So sound is very important, or sound vibration is very important in our life, because it's the thing that shapes. It takes mind, which is it's a part of mind, and mind molds, shapes and molds energy configuration, uh, put in place, attracts the elements. Those elements build systems, organs, and human vehicles so that life can be expressed through it. So that's the thing about sound. I hope that answers your question.
The next question. Where's that page from the key 8 components of vision? I think I answered that present. Hardy has a question here. Whenever I try to attend your class, my network goes off. Environment starts to disturb me. What do I understand about this? So this has happened many times.
I don't know. You probably need to examine where you are in life. Everything happens for a reason. So examine where you are in life. Some things are best answered by self-assessment and examination. It could be something simple, or it could be your own karmic pattern. So that's why you must examine yourself.
And another question here. Can you speak a bit about the hair raising on your body or spiritual chills people get when in meditation? What is the yogic science behind this?
Um, One of the things I notice is that, and I think Dr. Joseph King spoke about it too, but I actually noticed before I heard him speak about it. When you when you when you begin to do mystic practices, I wouldn't call it meditation, but because most people speak about meditation when they're speaking about concentration. Because first you need to be able to contemplate, then you need to be able to, first you need to be able to concentrate, then you reach the level of contemplation, then you reach the level of meditation. But one of the things that I noticed is that when you pray or chant mantra, your aura spins. And when your aura spins, you begin to throw off negative thought forms, when which stops the modifications. It throws off those things that will interfere with you calming the mind down and focusing the mind on one thing. So then you, first of all, in the prayer mantra, the molecules rub themselves um, against each other. The psychic energy begins to flow better and you begin to feel the psychic energy just pushing through 200,000 naughty pathways in your body. And you have a physical reaction from it because you are taking your senses and pushing your senses into the body instead of out of the body. And you're putting more focus with your 5 or 10 senses on the body. So you begin to notice the hair standing up. Sometimes when you even speak about it and I know when my father used to teach us when we were kids, and when he get excited about giving us that information because we asked the right question, I'll always notice his hair stand up on his arm. And when he prayed, same thing. So that it's a reaction of the energy configuring itself and the auric forces raising the vibrations. That's my opinion.
Okay, and then we have another question here. How can I examine myself or do self-assessment? Is it by being more conscious?
Yes, that's a way of looking at it, being more conscious, looking to see things in your life that's obstructing you from reaching your goal. There's many ways to do self-assessment. So it's just like a system check. If you're trying to get something to work, you have a checklist of to check the system to make sure all the energies or connectors are right. So you have to do that in your life at times.
There's a question here. Can you speak a little about embryonic breathing? I've never heard embryonic breathing.
There must be a buzzword. Tell me what they mean by that. It must be a new age buzzword. I don't.
What's that? Yeah, it looks like a Taoist breathing technique that has you breathe without using the nose or mouth.
Like I said, it must be some new terminology. I've been doing this for all my life. There's a breathing technique where you don't breathe. I've been studying the Hindu and Buddhist methods.
Is it possibly a technique to to to, to take in prana without physical breathing?
Well, there's techniques where you I could say this. There's techniques where the yoga techniques, the Kundalini yoga techniques, where you breathe in and out, and you retain the breath. And then you get to a point where you're retaining the breath, and you can retain the breath for long periods of time. And you can retain the breath for long periods of time. And like if you breathe in for 21 counts, you can breathe in, you can hold your breath for double that amount, and then exhale for 21 counts. But then you get to a point, your goal is to be able to not breathe, to retain the breath. Your goal is, after doing that for many, many, many years, is to not be able to hold the breath for at least 2 hours and 40 some minutes or something like that. Where you hold the breath for the full cycle of the exchange of energy from the sun to the earth, and you take in the energy. You taking in the energy because you raise the consciousness of the Kundalini, where you pull the energy in through the chakras and not through the nadis. In other words, it still goes into the nadis, but it goes into the chakras first.
Hmm. So is that practice the one you were talking about, or what's to say, or of the practice of, is it a practices of Kriya Yoga? Is this question here?
But Kriya Yoga it, Kriya Yoga is one step away from um, from Tantra Yoga. In fact, in order to really get to Tantra Yoga, you must, uh, in my opinion, you must somewhat perfect or adept Kriya Yoga, because Kriya Yoga is placing a tremendous discipline and synchronized action, by using multiple yogas. So Kriya Yoga become a way of life for you, where you put a daily regimen in your life, and you use those techniques over and over and over. And Tantra Yoga is when you loom all the yogas together. You're still doing the thing with Kriya Yoga. You're doing the same thing, but Kriya Yoga is multiple action, because the word Kriya itself means action. So you create a discipline in your life where you live that, what you are practicing, to the point where you have daily, you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is practice your Kriya. You go into that divine action of connecting with the whole, and you do it several times a day. Before you go to sleep, when you wake up, you make sure you're doing those. That's Kriya. And it brings you to the level where you awaken the Kundalini.
Okay. So all good questions, everyone. Keep them coming, and we will continue on. So as I mentioned earlier, today we'll be looking at taking a behind the scenes look at the process we employ when we are preparing materials to be released to everyone, including um, books, write-ups, illustrations, and so on. This particular document is one we're working on for the past couple of weeks as response to a request for a practice of manifestation. And as usual, as you'll find in a lot of the teachings, especially materials given um, by qualified teachers, is they will give you the knowledge and science first before introducing you to the practice itself. And there are many reasons for that, but once you have the theory, once you have the knowledge down, then when it comes to the application part of it, you know what you're doing. You're informed, and it protects you from any damage or harm, making any mistakes that can have multiple consequences, whether dead on the line in this life or future lives, um, in your journey. So with this document, first we're given the eight key components of imagination and visualization. And here you see in this illustration here a summary of those eight components. And then throughout the text, we'll go into each of those components in a bit of detail. And then after we've given you the theory, the technique is given. Now, in this study, in this review of the document, I won't actually go into the technique itself. If you want the technique, you'll have to write us, and Mr. Davis approves, then we'll send you this document. Um, because as I was reading through it, it's like, well, that is quite the potent technique. And I can see why such a warning is given prior to the release of the technique, and as well as so much knowledge and information, background information and knowledge on the process of imagination and visualization is introduced first. Now, this also goes along with a couple of lectures given by Dr. George King on imagination, man's only creative faculty. Was the title of one lecture, visualization. He goes into visualization, imagination, visualization in that practice, and then he goes into imagination and visualization in that lecture, as well as several other lectures. And in the Contact Your Highest with the Yoga, Realize Your Inner Potential books, um, both a pranayama and well, actually no, in the Realize Your Inner Potential book, prana, no, sorry, Contact Your Higher Self. In that book, the Contact Your Higher Self with the Yoga, pranayama practices are given. In Realization of Your Inner, Realize Your Inner Potential book, um, both a pranayama and a visualization practice is given. That goes along with the pranayama practice. And those are very important practices, the science of which is the employed imagination, which is the vessel or instrument we use to manifest and create um, everything. It is our creative faculty. Okay, Hardy, I see your question. I'll get to your question in a minute. So and also part of today's behind the scenes look is we're going to examine the process of editing and producing these documents so that for those of you who are interested in participating in this type of work or type of activity, hopefully it'll motivate you to reach out and say, hey, I'd like to engage in this kind of work. I'd like to volunteer and help with disseminating the teachings, editing, proofreading. Um, and even if English is not your first language or your primary language, or you're not very strong in English, that's okay. The more perspectives we have um, looking at these materials, the better we'll be able to produce them to reach the widest audience. And there's even so, eventually, at some point in time, we would like to begin translating these documents into several languages. So if you're multilingual, bilingual, multilingual, by all means, there is opportunity for you to participate with this type of work as well. So this text is broken up into several sections here in the contents. And the way that the contents is written is it's kind of a live document. So as we go through the document and I may make changes to headings or subject areas, those changes are also reflected well, in the contents. I'll leave that to Mr. Davis because whenever I try to do it, as you can just see, sometimes I break it. So, but most of the times when we are working through document, we'll just work through the body itself, and then we'll leave uh, the finishing touches um, to Mr. Davis before we send it out to be publishing for publishing. Let me see if I can undo that. No, probably not in this version. Let me see.
Don't worry about it. I get it.
Okay, I think there. So here in the contents, we have the first section is the contents break down the components. Each component is an individual section. And then within each of the section, more detail is given. But these are the general contents. Generally, in Mr. Davis's writings, you'll see an overall high level table of contents. And then next, you'll see a detailed contents, which actually lists out the subsections in each section. That'll probably come later with this one, as it'll be, I think this is will be as a chapter that I've included in a larger work. But we have the components of imagination, man's only creative faculty, visualization, the pathway for the energy of invocation. The imagination gives life to the following mental forms within his atmosphere or the atmosphere, which was usually the aura. We have mental comprehension. They go into imagination, creates images or thought forms. The power of imagination has a magnetic quality. Imagination is visualization, a sustaining device that energizes thought forms. And we go to the fourth component of imagination is love energy sustaining any and all cycles of operation. And the fifth component, imagination, pranayama techniques that energizes the thought forms. A mantra is used in imagination to further shape and mold vital energies. Mudra is used in the imagination to seal, redirect, impregnate, redistribute, and project vital energies. And then the final component, making any imagination work, is the principles and techniques of Raja Yoga. So that's a high level view of the contents. But generally speaking, I rarely come in here and make changes unless there's maybe a word that needs to be respelled. But if you make a change in the subject heading here, it'll be reflected in the contents. But again, I usually leave that to Mr. Davis because he's much better at that than I am. Everybody that works with us when we do these editings has their particular strength and weaknesses. So one of our fellow students, um, I think she was an English literature major, and her editing skills are superb. But um, her perspective is different from mine in that I'm looking at it as a more uh, technical, metaphysical um, expression of the information. And she's looking as a more grammatical, English technical perspective when she's making her changes. And when you combine all of our talents together, it produces a material that we hope is able to reach the largest possible audience. And create the largest possible impact in those who, greatest possible impact in those who pick up the material, study and read it, and change their karmic destiny moving forward. It's no being by no means perfect, and we do even go back years later. Like for example, we look at we've taken looks back at the first text Mr. Davis published, Ancient Language of the Soul book, and we see a lot of opportunities for edits and rearrangements and changes that we would like to make. Maybe in a second edition, there's a lot of things we'd like to add into the text. But you're always having that balance whenever we're doing material, working material like this, is there's so much that can be said in a single subject. Imagination by itself, uh, you could have volumes and volumes of books released if you just wanted to give a proper treatment to the subject of imagination alone. Um, but would that be practical? You could spend their entire lives working on just one subject and releasing a massive volume that, may not help many people. So we're constantly doing this balancing act of what is important to get across, what is the message we want to convey, but at the same time, inviting the student to read between the lines and to take this information within themselves and to their higher self, and thereby allowing themselves to grow and to teach themselves as they use this information as nuggets or as megabytes of information, Mr. Davis calls it, to allow us to expand and grow further. So you'll see that as we go through this material, we'll say, okay, well, is this the best way to convey this message? Is this the best way to say it? Um, does the essence of this science, this occult science, this mystic science, this metaphysical science, is that being conveyed in a way that people can understand, apply, and grow? We don't want to make it so simple that it's watered down to the point where it's practically useless, but you don't want to make it so advanced that it's over everyone's head and it's just put aside until, you know, maybe some later date or some later life. So there's always that balance we're looking at when we're working through, we're producing, working through, and releasing this information. All right, so let's see here. We have another question here. As you said, we are bound by, excuse me, sorry. You said we're bound by 3 ounces of oxygen around us, like an aura. But researching it, I could not find that information on the internet. It says, is that information hidden? Not what I want to do. Oh, Nehemiah, there you're muted.
Yeah, I don't think I said 3 ounces. I said 20 cubes of air surrounds the body in order to keep us alive. The same way you have an aura around you, and that's medical science information. You can look that up. It's 20 cubes of air surrounds any human body that allows you to continue to pull on the oxygen supply. And that's readily available information that you can look that up. I was a former medical student, and my first couple of writings I wrote on those things. It's not 3 ounces, it's 20 cubes of air.
Cubic feet, you mean 20
Yeah,
cubic feet of air.
yeah.
Okay. Another question. What would be some beneficial mantras to chant to clear the verities and expand the aura? Dr. Sri Yogiriji George King released mantras um, beneficial for uh, us to use. Um, so sorry, President, we're not going to give you mantras in
Mhm.
today's class, but I'll give you the direct link to
Yeah, and
the
ancient,
mantra initiation album
yeah,
that you can
and
purchase.
in ancient science, it tells us that mantra is used to burn up sin. So, in a more modern way of looking at it, if you chant mantra on a regular basis every day, several times a day, what you're doing is decoding the body. Because when you chant a mantra properly, it spins the aura. And if you know anything about a centrifuge, uh, I'm sure all of us was taught that in school. If you take a vial of blood and stick it into a centrifuge and they spin that centrifuge around, you'll notice that the blood platelets separate and the lower density parts of the blood go away and I may fall to the bottom and it separates the blood and you can see the platelets, the white blood, the red blood cells inside the blood, inside the vial. Well, when you chant mantra, your aura spins to a point where it throws off negative thought forms that and burn them up. It burns them up, and the ones that doesn't burn off, it throws them off. And if they're not connected to the aura, they quickly die unless someone else picked them up. But you get this screen that forms around the body, and when it does that, it lowers the modifications of the aura, which which allows you a cleaner and purer aura. The yogis describe mantra uh, repetition or japa, which is mantra repetition. They describe that as burning the sins of humans, where you burn up the sands. In a more modern time, yes, it's like a centrifuge and it decodes the body. It replaced the negative samskars with positive samskars. And it helps you in many, many different ways. Because it allows you to think clear. It allows you to move vital energy through the aura and through the mind quicker and faster. And eventually it will merge the physical senses with the astral senses and allow you to create psychic senses. So it has many, many, many different attributes to it. Hope that answers your question.
Okay. And let me see if you can. Okay, okay, if you can see the screen present. Um, if you go to the ethereus.org and in their shop, you have the option of there's an album called The Initiation into Dynamic and Soul Mantra. And I'll read the description here. An initiation by Dr. George King. Mantra is a mystical system of sacred sounds which create sonic vibrations through the brain and nerves when uttered. The correct performance of mantra will enable you to increase your powers of concentration and enhance your spiritual progress. It is designed to move subtle energies within the auric envelope and also attract subtle energies from outside the auric envelope so that you can become charged up with nature's finer forces. In the 72-minute album, Western Master of Yoga Dr. George King initiates you into no less than 11 mantras of great power and beauty. He discloses how his 30 years of research and use of mantra led him to develop the powerful system of dynamic mantra and the mystical system of soul mantra. You are taught how to use these mantras with no less than 20 demonstrations of the correct intonation of these mantras by students of Dr. King. The mantras are printed on a card insert, which comes with this album. That's if you buy the CD version. And if you practice these mantras as taught, they will become an important milestone in your mental and spiritual education and progress. To the option of purchasing it as a CD, or you can also go to the cloud.ethereus.org, and get a copy of this initiation as well. I'll post the link to the CD in the chat. And then also on this site, you can click on this link here and it'll take you to the cloud version so you can listen to it online if you prefer to go that route. But these mantras that are in this album are the ones we use regularly, both in our own spiritual practice and as well in other practices like the 12 blessings, prayer power, um, healing, and so on and so forth. All right, so let me put that in the chat if I can find it. All right, so there's a link in the chat. All right, so with the 30 odd minutes or so we have remaining. I know we started a little bit late, so I may go over by a bit today. Let's go ahead and jump into today's sneak peek. All right, so we're looking at the 8 components of imagination and visualization. One of the keys to tapping into the all-pervasive universal mind substance that contains the all-knowledge space is our inherent faculty, imagination. I don't think that comma is needed there. As stated by the late Western master of yoga, Dr. George King, imagination is man's only creative faculty. And oh, since we're here in the cloud, let me show you that lecture. And I apologize if I'm having internet connection issues. It's been storming all weekend and it's currently storming right now. So, and I've had indications that I've had some bad connection, so I apologize for that. Imagination. How do you spell imagination? Okay, so really quickly. Also in the cloud, you'll see this lecture, Imagination, Your Only Creative Faculty. Dr. George King expands on the concept of imagination and how it is our creative faculty. And I invite you to listen to that as well. All right, let's go back. The ability to imagine is something that all of mankind has from birth. And throughout his lifetime, he uses this ability to achieve almost everything he is confronted with. Man's imagination has a magnetic effect on the psycho-mental level of his being, which causes various mental explosive activities that produces the mental images desired from his mental command. Now, as I was reading this, this is another aspect of what I was talking about earlier. The term mental is repeated 4 times in this one sentence. Now, some may say, oh, that's too much. You need to have the word mental, 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 mental so many times there. And several years ago, well, when I would have reviewed this document, I would take some of those mental words out. This is another circumstance where we have to ask ourselves, what is the author, what is Mr. Davis trying to say, and why is he doing this? Why does he keep repeating this word over and over and over again? And if you're just a general copy editor, or if you're not just a general copy, but if you used to reading many, many books and copy editing many books, and you don't really understand the individual, the personage behind the text, you'll look at it strictly as a technical basis, and you won't really try to connect with what the author is trying to say. The reason I chose to leave these mental, 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 and mental 4 times in this sentence is because I understand on a very rudimentary level, at least, how Mr. Davis teaches. When you go back to his classes, you'll see that he emphasizes certain points, even to the point of belaboring certain points over and over and over again. And it's not because he likes to repeat himself. Nobody likes to constantly repeat themselves. But there's an impression he's trying to make upon us. There's an idea he's trying to push into us that in this sentence, the correlation between a mental activity and imagination is being made. So much so that the term mental is repeated 4 times, and numerologically, four is significant here in that it is four is foundation. And so that foundation of correlating imagination with a psycho mental activity is being um, laid here in this introduction paragraph and in this sentence. And as we continue on with the document, you'll see that establishment of that foundation of it being a psycho mental spiritual activity of imagination and manifestation. Is that correct? Man, if mine is not talking out of my head here.
No, no,
That's
that's correct.
Please correct me if I'm making a mistake. Okay. So that's one of the benefits, I like to say, of doing this type of work. It allows you to establish a a deeper connection with I'm gonna say guru because Nehemiah is my guru. He's my teacher. It allows me to establish a deeper connection with Nehemiah because again, sound is consciousness and written word is just recorded sound. A deeper connection with the consciousness of my teacher so that I'm able to pull on this information to a greater level than if I was just uh, a part, an observer, a watcher, someone who's just listens from the periphery. But now I'm diving into it and allows me to gain greater insight from even just a single sentence. And I'm sure there's even more to it there. It is the layers of the onion peel deeper and deeper and deeper to get to the core. There's more to it there. But just from that cursory review of a single sentence, I would say, okay, this is what my Mr. Davis is trying to convey. And this is why he's going to such lengths to put mental 4 times in a sentence. There's a reason for that. There's a methodology behind that. And I'd be able to, in some small level, understand the message that is being conveyed. And the same thing will be with you as you help with these teachings, and not just with the teachings, whether it's um, sitting down with the 9 freedoms and reading it over and over and over and over and over again. you know, you begin to connect yourself with the consciousness of the entity that pushed that knowledge through. And you begin to hear and see deeper and deeper in between the lines. And what is the transmission itself, maybe each freedom, maybe 2 or 3 pages worth of text. But as you connect yourself deeper and deeper with that consciousness, you see the volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of wisdom behind each sentence, each word, each letter. The the word usage, the word choice, the like for example, we just talked about here, the four mentals for being significant in numerology for the establishment of a foundation. You see that in the 12 blessings, you see that in the nine freedoms, you see that in the Ramaraya, you see that in the Upanishads, you see that in the Bible, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's continue. There are several components to the power of imagination, which is an inherent faculty of the human psychospiritual spiritual makeup. The following is the mystic knowledge behind the main known functioning components of the power of imagination manifestation. So the way that word works, you're going to see a lot of red here and different colors. The way that word works, especially when you have the feature of track changes on, when a change is made, for example, here, when I made the change here on my own computer, and it has the name of the person who made the changes there, um, you can see what was changed, the suggested change, or if I remove something here, you can see crossed out is the word I removed and what I added or changed or moved or whatever. And that gives all of us the opportunity as we're going back and forth with this material. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. To say, yes, that makes sense. No, that doesn't make sense. Yes, removing of this term here is good. Or no, it's not good. Let's put it back. Or if we'll get later on, you'll see here that there was actually an entire paragraph I removed. Like here, I moved several lines or further on. I don't mean to keep jumping around this. I'm sorry, guys, but just give you an idea of how this works. We only have 30 minutes. I don't want to take up too much time. Like here, for example, I took this entire paragraph out. But that was because this was repeated from earlier. But we can no change that if you're volunteering with us and you're helping this process, you don't have to be afraid and say, okay, if I make this change, am I going to ruin the document or anything like that? No. All changes are suggested changes, and then ultimately, Mr. Davis is the final authority on what change goes and does not go in. And so you make your suggested changes, you make your edits. We have group calls where we all come together and go over our changes together. We like to work off of one shared document because it's easy. Before everybody would have their own document they would work under, and then we'd all send our documents back to Nehemiah. Then he would go through several documents and incorporate the changes. That's just way too much work. So it's easier to go through an online shared version. Everybody makes their changes to that one version, and it's tracked by each user. And so we're able to say, okay, this change makes sense, this one doesn't, but final authority goes, final say so is to Mr. Davis. And then at the end, we produce something that we feel is, pretty good and release it to everybody else. All right, let's continue on. The following is the mystic knowledge behind the main functioning components of the power of imagination manifestation. The key to any mystical practice is the ability to obtain control over the imagination. This particular mystic practice of manifesting your desire is of no difference. In this chapter, I will attempt to bring about some brief understanding of the use and control of imagination in this mystical practice of manifesting your desire. In order to understand what imagination is, we must first have a clear picture of what we are and how we exist in a sea of all pervasive mind substance and cosmic energies. Now, this is one of the questions I had. I'm going to repeat the question because Mr. Davis already talked about it earlier. not earlier today. So Davis and I, we discussed it before when I was making changes to this section, is that although we're releasing this as a standalone document, specifically to answer Hadi's request on how to manifest, it is a chapter in a book, meaning that there are chapters preceding this that go into detail about certain concepts, and each chapter builds upon the previous chapter's information. So, although mind substance and cosmic energies in this chapter we talk about, give a clear picture of what we are and how we exist in a sea of all pervasive mind substance and cosmic energies, this chapter is not going to give an in-depth treatise on mind, mind substance, and cosmic energies. That would have usually been already given in a previous chapter or in another text. So when you're reading this as a copy editor, you may see, okay, well, cosmic energies is not really defined here, but understanding it's not defined here extensively because it has been done so in a previous chapter or in a previous works. And each of these books, although each book that Mr. Davis releases is able to stand on its own, it is still part of a large body of work that builds upon itself and builds upon each subsequent release. So always keep that in mind as you're reading and editing um, each section, each chapter, and so on and so forth. Man's ability to manifest himself on any realm of existence is based on the level of mind frequency his soul has been able to translate through the various manifested vehicles of expression used throughout the many incarnations and karmic limitations of that life stream. Our entire life cycles are based on our ability to tune into the all knowledge space and translate this into spiritual karmic action. Spiritual karmic actions can be defined as the actions of a person that strictly adheres to the divine laws of karma because of the wisdom obtained from this all knowledge space of universal mind substance. Here is a definition of freedom without telling you it's a definition of freedom. So remember talking about earlier, which means free will and freedom, which is also a lecture, Free Will versus Freedom by Dr. George King. Aligning all of your actions with the law of karma is freedom. And as you go throughout your lives with a predetermined goal of, let's say, yoga or union with God. My goal is union with God. That is my objective. Now, enlightenment is predetermining all of your actions throughout your life or lives to accomplish that one goal. How do I predetermine all those actions? By understanding the laws which govern all action, you will know that if I want to get to D, I must go A, B, and C. If I go A and then detour to G and then go out to here to see this one, with each improper action, you have to make a dozen or so, or 100 or so, or several corrective actions to bring you back in alignment with the predetermined path you have set for yourself. And that predetermined path can be made um, before you even incarnated. In the Hall of Self-Judgment, when you plan out each incarnation, your higher self predetermines a objective for that incarnation. You take upon a body and you go about that incarnation to accomplish that goal. And whether or not you accomplish that or to what level you accomplish that is up to the individual life stream as they move along. You can um, accelerate your development and evolution by strictly adhering to whatever it was that purpose for the incarnation is, or you can slow down your advancement evolution and take on several corrective actions or several corrective incarnations based off of the actions you took in that particular incarnation. So it's all up to you whether you would choose to adapt or give in to free will or limit your actions and take upon freedom. That's essentially teased here in that one sentence. As we continue on, we'll look at the power of imagination is an, what did I put here? Inherent quality within the human psychological, wait, the power of imagination is an inherent quality within the human psychological makeup. Logical makeup. Yeah. It gives human beings the ability to build a mental image in their minds and within the auric mental structure. The power of imagination creates a huge demand on various types of subtle energies, such as the psychic mental energies, psychic energies within the auric structure and pull on the surrounding mental and vital energies to manifest the thought patterns. The inherent faculty of imagination throws into action the power of Kundalini, the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, part of the superconscious mind, the auric envelope, the nadi system, and the chakra system. Kundalini is the vehicle of consciousness. Kundalini is the vehicle of consciousness and creates the pathway to feed the imagination or the thought forms it creates. Okay, that's a little confusing. Kundalini is the vehicle of consciousness. Nima, are you saying here that Kundalini creates the pathway to feed the imagination
Yeah,
or thought
Kundalini,
forms it creates?
Kundalini is the soul used Kundalini to create the consciousness, and because the Nadi pathways extends from the power of Kundalini, and that's what creates all consciousness, all senses. So when you begin to organize your thoughts, you begin to use the existing the existing Kundalini power within the nadis.
Okay.
You understand?
But is it the pathway to feed the imagination? Is
Yes,
it isn't that pathway the nadis?
the nadis are the pathways.
Okay.
You have to understand that the nadis is an extension of the Kundalini. In other words,
Okay, okay, okay.
it not exist without the power of Kundalini. That's why Kundalini is the vehicle of consciousness. Because when you bring the Ida Nadi, which is a mental energy, and the Vita Nadi, which is a uh, a vital energy, I mean the Pingala Nadi, which is a vital energy, together, you produce a field of you produce a vortex center of consciousness.
Hmm.
So it's those two streams of a flow of energy that feeds consciousness. Nothing moves without Kundalini. Absolutely nothing. You blink your eye, that's Kundalini. You wiggle your finger, that's Kundalini. You breathe, that's Kundalini. You walk, that's Kundalini. You be still, that's Kundalini.
Right.
All motion happens because of Kundalini.
Okay. Integrates pathway imagination. Right. The following are the components of creating and sustaining imagination and visualization of the imaginative thought forms. Hmm. Okay, so when that exchange just now is an example of the process of how we um, edit and go through a document. If I come across a sentence or a phrase I have a question on, I'll ask Mr. Davis about it. And as you just heard, it allows him to expand further. I'm sorry, allows him to expand further on the idea he's trying to get across. And then now, in turn, it expands my knowledge and awareness of of that particular concept. And then in turn, my job now is to take what he just said and to ensure that it is being conveyed in what is in the document so that those of you, when you come back and read the document, that same message is conveyed. Now, that may require me to expand and add several more sentences or a whole other paragraph there, or to manipulate the wording of the sentence so that it's clear the message that is being conveyed properly um, to the intended audience. It's an engaging process, and I enjoy it because again, like I mentioned before, it allows me to learn so much more, have my questions answered, and as well as participate in the process of this ongoing karmic manipulation and expounding and propagating the teachings for the benefit of all, and i.e., a form of active spiritual healing for all those who these teachings come across. Service. All right, continue on. The following are the components to creating and sustaining the imagination and visualization of the imaginative thought forms. One, pranayama science. A mystic imaginative state brings about a natural regulation of breath. So, to apply the knowledge of pranayama science and techniques will only serve. So, the application of the knowledge and techniques of the pranayama science will only serve to build capacity. Okay. Yeah. So, applying the knowledge and techniques of pranayama science will only serve to build the capacity of imagination. Yeah, I think that sounds better. But again, if you make an edit or a change and later on Mr. Davis goes through it, he says, no, that doesn't properly convey what I wanted to say. He has a final say in either removing these edits and sending it back to the original version or keeping it. Or if another person comes back, another editor comes back and looks at it and says, that's not quite right. So if you guys are reading along and you say, I'm doing that doesn't quite sound right, I would think this type of change would be better, or it could be expanded on in this way. You know, if you're working with us as an editor, by all means, we would gladly take in your input. Mantra Sastra, sound knowledge. The laws of Mantra Sastra teachings, the laws of Mantra Sastra teaches us that this ancient science of sound vibrations has the power to help accelerate the formation of the thought forms created by imagination. Mantra japa, repetition, mantra can feed the imaginative thought forms through the mantra japa technique of the repetition of the mantra words. The mantra words code the thought forms with megabytes of subtle powers which help to manifest the thought forms. Let me read that again. Mantra can feed the imaginative thought forms through the mantra japa technique of repetition of the mantra words. Okay. The mantra words code the thought forms with megabytes of subtle powers, which help to manifest the thought forms. Okay. Mudra Yoga. Mudra Yoga techniques are known to help manipulate the subtle energies generated from pranayama, mantra japa, balanced affirmation, visualization practices, and prayer techniques. Okay. Visualization practices, a technique that sustains information and its thought forms. This component and technique of imagination is the vehicle to stimulate and harness all subtle energies generated to be utilized to sustain thought forms. All right, that sound all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Hardy has a question here. If my friend and I both want to manifest something, we know this, we know the same thing, and we both know the same technique. And I guess you guys want to manifest the same thing. I'm assuming, Hardy. Then who will manifest the thing first? Just a curious question. So I guess you're saying, Hardy, if both of you and a friend want to manifest the same thing and both utilize the same technique, whose manifestation will be realized first? Is that what you're asking, Hardy? Yes, that's what he's asking.
It depends on the capacity of the person. You just ask a question, if I have a Cadillac and a Pinto, who's going to reach the destination? It just depends on the capacity of vehicle you're using. Horse and buggy, or Mustang or Ferrari or whatever. He's the person who has the highest capacity to reach to close the gap between those 2 points. You have to build a capacity up. And it has a lot to do with that person's karmic configuration as well. The what people fail to always mention, and only the great ones do. They talk about the Lord Babaji, the Maha, the great Lord, the great Maha Lord Babaji, and people speak about him sitting in one place in certain parts of the world or realms of existence. And other people criticize that, but these great beings, they they only move when it's absolutely necessary. They only use the exact amount of energy needed for a comic response, and they don't have to move the way we move because they can exist on multiple realms of existence and create shades of themselves in multiple parts of the Earth, solar system, or galaxy. So everything moves according to the laws of karma. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So even us, our capacity depends on our karmic pattern.
Okay. Present says imagination can be affected by impressions that we received through social media, movies, etc. So we have to be careful what we ingest with our eyes.
That's true. And also, that's why the first couple limbs of yoga is yama and niyama. Those are purification type techniques to purify your mind, your auric, your thinking process, and your aura, and decrease the number of negative samskaras that you're coating your body with, and also increase the positive by the different practices of the 10 yamas and the 10 nan yamas of of those practices because it helps to purify the body. It helps to lower the impurities within the body.
Another comment by a present. Imagination has a direct relation to dopamine as well, I remember hearing. So regulating dopamine helps in increasing imagination. Mm,
Dopamine, you're talking about the natural release
yeah, dopamine in the brain, yeah.
of the brain. Yeah, well, when you practicing these yogic, especially the Rajic yogic practices, which all the practices uses Raja Yoga. All the yogas uses Raja Yoga because Raja Yoga uses all 11 yogas that we speak about here. It helps regulate the chemical base. You want to control the mind so that you can control the elements within the body and outside of the body. That's our greatest control. But you do this through Nani, through Kama, through Bhati, through Raja, and and uh, and Hati, and mantra and mudra yoga. You gain control over these elements by practicing all these yogas in various systems of yoga. And the royal yoga to control these things is Raja Yoga. And of course, Kriya Yoga, and of course, Tantra Yoga, and eventually Kundalini Yoga and Layer Yoga. But you will use all the yogas in order to practice uh, these things in order to come to in order to achieve control over these elements or a combination of the elements.
And present, I would advise you to not get caught in the trap of seeing everything, interpreting everything through physical manifestation. Because we're, as we mentioned earlier in that sentence where mental, 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 mental was repeated 4 times. Um, if you see yourself only through the physical, then you will limit your expression and ability to manifest across, especially when it comes to these spiritual type of things, across all the realms. For example, Nehemiah gives told the story. I think it was an engineer or a scientist or someone who was you know, engrossed in the physical world, but then they were learning to astral project. And they eventually came to some success with being able to project from their body. But before they would lay down to project, they would go into the room, they would close the door, and then they would start to do their practice and helping develop their ability to astral project. And once they eventually accomplished the ability to project, they would find themselves trapped in their room because they were so engrossed in the physical expression that even in their astral body, they thought they could not pass through the walls or pass through the doors, and they would walk up to a wall, up to the door, and they would just bounce off the wall. Not because the astral body couldn't pass through the door and the wall, it could, but they believed that this was a physical solid wall and they couldn't pass through it, and so they ended up finding themselves trapped in their own room until they released themselves from that limitation that they place on themselves. And then they were able to pass through the walls and project outwards and go wherever they wish to go. So as I say that to say, don't get too caught up in just you know, the physical, yes, the physical brain plays a part in imagination, but it doesn't stop with the physical brain. The physical brain is a transceiving set that translates and receives uh, mind energies. As we get later on in the document, especially when he's, in this particular document, where he talks about the chakras, we refer to the chakras as the instrument in which thought moves in and out, with mental images moving in and out. We think through, with and through the chakras, not with and through the brain.
Yeah,
So it is,
you have
sorry.
to. I don't mean to cut you off, but you have
Okay.
to. The very important one. You have to realize that the same way the five major elements and the multiple combination of those elements work on the physical plane, they also work in a certain way on the astral plane or the mental plane or the etheric plane, and they have a greater capacity because like Dr. King pointed out a very interesting thing, which you can see when you project and go on the mental planes or the astral planes, that the although the on the astral planes and etheric planes, the matter, although the matter is supposed to be a finer matter, and the gross and the physical plane supposed to be a gross matter, the on the astral planes, when you examine the physical material there, the atoms and the cells are closer together. There's less space there. So you can which gives it actually greater capacity, because if you think about something moving through open space, you don't want to drag on it. You don't want a tremendous drag on that in order to move through open space. So when you pull matter together, it it can resist certain drag or elements and move through open space. So it makes sense, and especially when you get into science, and the story that Dwayne just told you, it brings a smile to my face because I witnessed this young man. I was just a kid at the time, but my brother was a teacher at one of the colleges, and this guy came in, and he was a good friend of my brother, but he was brilliant, a brilliant scientist, and just with a tremendous mental capability, and knew so much, but he had limited himself by the science he had read because it was hard for him to enter into this mental psychic world, although he believed that it exists, but he looked at it on a very physical level, which is nothing wrong with that if you realize that when you project or move to that astral or that astral plane of existence, that there's another play on the on that astrophysical matter that you're dealing with, because you can mold it, shape it, and do more things with it than you can on this physical plane. So he had to gradually come to that understanding, because he went through the process of trial and error even there with his so-called scientific approach. When on these planes, you can create things on the mental plane and then manifest it on the astral plane, and it should work for you. But he didn't realize that he went through the same thing he did on this plane, and just search, travel, move, try looking for different elements when that's not the case on the other planes.
Okay. All right. So we're a bit over here, but I want to, before we close out, there was a question I had here. And I wanted to go to that question in the class because I kind of want everybody to see that process. Uh, I think it was here, yeah, because I had a question mark there, and there's another one where I had a question mark, and here consciousness too. But let's do it here because we just talked about Kundalini, so I had a question about this one. So this is mantras. Okay, key 10. Mudra is used in imagination to seal, redirect, impregnate, redistribute, and project vital energies. Mudra yoga is known as the yoga of mystic hand signs, body gestures, and postures that man uses to help seal and redirect the cosmic energies within the physical body and subtler bodies. Mudra yoga is an advanced form of yoga that helps the practitioner of the mudra technique to create a link between the physical body, pranic bodies, and the mental bodies with the subtle sealing, redirecting, and redistributing of the pranic flow. This mudra yoga is built upon the metaphysical science of Tantra Sastra and Mantra Sastra, which includes the vital life force, energy called Kundalini, the primary vehicle of consciousness of the soul. Okay, then here's where I had the question. You said what you had before says which aligns itself with the chakra system within the auric structure. Now, my question here was, are you referring to Kundalini aligns itself with the chakra system, the auric structure, or something else, or mudra yoga? I assumed you were talking about Kundalini here, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, go on and read. It should explain itself.
Okay. The chakra system can be described as a series of vortex centers of cosmic, subtle, mental, and vital energies wrapped in subtle sonic modes of motion, called the tattva rays. The tattva rays radiate from the mighty sun and intertwine with the energies radiating from the other planets within the solar system. Kundalini sends a stream of subtle energies from itself, also with a series of ancient sonic sounds, to the Ida nadis, a mental flow of energies, and the Pingala nadis, a vital flow of energies. And these nadis thread themselves through the 108 chakras within the auric structure, creating a matrix of consciousness. And so, based off of that, I figure, okay, you were talking about Kundalini here, which is why I
Yeah,
put
yeah.
Kundalini. Okay.
Kundalini, what happens when the auric body, when the soul erects the auric body, because the soul works through the auric body, and the auric body is the body of the soul. And that auric body creates like a nebula effect on the environment. And the nebula, in fact, pulls on this subtle energy, this dark energy that we can't see, that scientists call that we can't see.
Hmm.
But it manifests itself. You could see it in the nebula. And the only thing you see is like a cloud and all these different energies and the ancient people called it Tava or Tava rays.
Hmm.
And and what it does, the soul form tapped into the chakra or the vortex centers of of uh, of the universal consciousness. That's what a chakra is, because the chakras, the only thing the soul and the auric body doing is tapping into this stream of power called a vortex center or a chakra,
Hmm.
and it locks it into the auric field itself, and now it has a way to pull on the energies of the cosmos, and then the when it does this, it's pulling on this cosmic energy or this cosmic stream of consciousness, and the soul begins to create a limited type of consciousness by pulling on the Shakti principles, and they pull it down through Shushana or the Brahmanati within the Brahmanati within Shushana, and they concentrate this Shakti power and turn it into a this thing called Kundalini at the Muladhara chakra,
Hmm.
what they call the root chakra, and then the Muladhara chakra splits up the Shakti in a basic to create a basic form of consciousness, and it sends it back up into the aura, crisscrossing through all the major chakras, creating a basic form of consciousness, and cutting man off or human off of the supreme level of consciousness or mind belt of the universal cosmos. And now we have to go through this thing called evolution in order to reach that God level of consciousness again. But we have to do it through correct actions, which is karma. We have to
Hmm.
do it, we have to do it through Nani yoga and Kama yoga, and which makes up all the other yogas, and find the right combination, the right action with viable experience of actually going through the motion in order to reach that godlike level, like the planet Earth is on a godlike level.
Hmm.
It's a planet Earth is alive. The solar system is alive. The galaxy is alive, but they still not God. They only an aspect of God,
Hmm.
but they receive uh, this supreme knowledge and understanding from the God source in order to regulate trillions of life forms within their orbit or within their care.
Okay. All right. That's it for today's behind the scenes look of some of the work we do at the International Mystic Knowledge Center. Again, if this is something you would be interested in participating with, um, send me an email. You have the option of sending us a Mystic Knowledge Center, all one word, at gmail.com, or you can email me directly, as I'll try and coordinate with everyone. Uh, uh, I think it's dmclean@mysticknowledge.org. And just send it to our Mystic Knowledge Center email, and I'll respond to you. Your interest, expressing an email expressing your interest in volunteering and helping us with these documents. As you can see, it does take a bit of time. And today we were only able to get through the introduction, and we didn't even get to the first one, but that's okay. So just a sneak peek to this document that Hardy had requested. So like I mentioned to you earlier, Hardy, after Mr. Davis gives me permission, I'll either I or Mr. Davis will email this to you so you can take a look at it. We're probably going to continue working on fleshing this out over some time because this is a chapter in a much larger work Mr. Davis is working on. All right, so if you have any final questions before we close out today's session, one question here is I heard someone say that that whatever you imagine is actually occurring in the astral plane. Is there any truth to this?
Uh, Whatever you imagine occurs in your aura. If you lived on the astral plane and you had proper knowledge and understanding of that particular thing, yes, you can create it and it can last for a particular time cycle. Uh, but you have to be prepared to hold on to that. especially if you're on some of the lower planes, because people will the same way if you like gold, silver, or a mansion or whatever you create it, then you have to guard that if you're on the lower astral realms. If you're on the higher realms or the higher realms, you may not necessarily have to guard it or worry about it too much unless someone come up from the lower astral realms to get it. But yes, you can create things almost instantly there. If you see things, if you think about how that thing should work, you can manifest it almost instantly there. So in fact, most of our inventions come from it's first used on the astral realms and then used here on the physical realms months, years later. Um, so that is true.
Okay. Are there any final questions or comments before we close out today's session? No, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Question here. When will the next class be? Hardy, are you on our I don't think you're on the email list. Actually, no, I'm gonna make a proper email list and excuse me. And when I do, I'll make a link so that everybody can just sign themselves up for it. Because the way I'm doing it now, I have a list of email addresses and I'm just, BCCing announcements to everybody. And that's not the most effective way to do it. So I'm going to create a proper email list. And when I do, I'll let everyone know so you can keep yourselves in the loop when we announce classes. Alternatively, or additionally, we use Meetup to announce all of our classes. So if you go to meetup.com or if you go to meetup.mysticknowledge.org, let me put that in the chat if I can spell DGE.org. Nope. L-E-D. Nope, I can't spell.
They can simply email us at Mystic Knowledge to tell us to put them on the list as well.
Yeah.
That'll probably be the most effective way to do it so you don't lose it.
So you can send us an email at Mystic Knowledge and I can add you to the list. I'm also going to make a listserv so that you can just sign up yourself and click on the link. But in the chat right now, I just put a link to, if you click on meetup.mysticknowledge.org, that'll route you directly to our meetup page. And there you can sign up to receive regular announcements. On there, we're called the My Metaphysical Study Group. But it's initially that's how Mr. Davis has set up the group and then eventually launched the IMKC. What is the best practice apart from pranayama to increase imagination? Oh, that's in here. That's in the text. Um, that includes the 8 key components. It includes Raja Yoga, mantra, mudra, etc. When Mr. Davis gives the all clear, I'll go ahead and send it to those who request it via email. I won't post it in the shared folder because it's a chapter that's going to go into a book at a later time. But I will, if given granted permission, send to those who requested via email. All right, there's no further questions. Let's go ahead and close out with reciting of the New Lord's Prayer. The New Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, Almighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so that those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in great humility do I ask you to send forth your power, to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up, and in doing so receive to their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. O great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on forever and forever. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for your kind attendance and participation. Again, if you're interested in volunteering or helping out with us in any way, capacity, you have the option of contributing financially through donating or contributing your time through participating in the many projects or activities we have going on. If proofreading, editing, or translating or something like that is something you'd like to do, by all means, please send us an email expressing your interest, and I will work with you to coordinate um, a schedule and opportunities for you to work on other documents and illustrations and media that we have. Everything from helping with video production, audio production, transcribing, editing documents, books. We have plenty of opportunity for everyone who would like to participate to be able to do so. All right, thank you very much, everyone, once again. And we'll see you next time. Have a great week.